The before every financial crash, before the chaos on TV screens, before the panic spreads like wildfire, there are always small hidden signals that almost no one notices until it's too late. Signals that don't scream out in headlines but whisper quietly in back rooms, in board meetings, in the subtle shifts of human behavior. And the truth is, these moments don't feel like the end of the world when they happen. They feel ordinary, almost boring, like a single candle flickering in the corner of a massive dark room. But behind that faint light, history is preparing another storm, and if you pay close attention, you'll see the same strange pattern playing out again and again. First, it's the silence in the banks when liquidity starts to dry up. Not a crash yet, just a stiffness in the flow of money, a hesitation in lending, like a heartbeat that skips for the first time. And second, it's the way optimism doesn't die overnight but instead lingers like a ghost. Investors keep telling themselves it's just a small correction. Businesses convince themselves that demand will bounce back. Politicians promise stability. But deep down, behind the curtains, insiders are already shifting their positions, pulling money quietly out of vulnerable markets. And you can almost feel it in the air, like the stillness before thunder. Because before the crash, there's always euphoria, not despair. People are celebrating record highs, new home sales, booming credit. But it's exactly that celebration that blinds them to what's coming next. And the ordinary person walking down the street has no clue that the ground beneath their feet is starting to crack. Because crashes don't start with fire. They start with dry wood waiting for a spark. Maybe it's a tiny bank default, maybe a sudden rate hike, maybe a rumor that spreads faster than facts. But the moment arrives when confidence, the invisible fuel of the financial world, suddenly collapses. And once that domino falls, the rest of the system doesn't slow down. It unravels violently, like glass shattering in slow motion that suddenly speeds up. And yet what fascinates me is how predictable human behavior becomes in those final days before a crash. Because everyone acts the same. Whether it's 1929, 2008, or the next one around the corner, greed stretches longer than reason. Fear sleeps until the very last second, and then both emotions explode at once, tearing through savings, jobs, businesses, and entire nations. And here's the strangest part. People often believe that crashes are caused by some big, single event, one dramatic headline that flips the world upside down. But in reality, the seeds are planted years earlier in subtle imbalances, bad incentives, quiet corruption, reckless optimism, and ordinary decisions stacked carelessly on top of each other until the weight becomes unbearable. And when the collapse finally happens, it feels sudden, like a trapdoor opening beneath your feet. But the truth is, it was never sudden. It was building silently all along, invisible to most, obvious only to a few who dared to look closely. And those who did often didn't shout about it, because in times of irrational optimism, no one listens to bad news. They'd rather believe in the fantasy, because it feels safer, more comfortable. And so the cycle repeats, generation after generation. A story as old as trade itself, a story of people ignoring the quiet warnings until the day the music stops. And here's the question you have to ask yourself. If history shows us that before every crash there are signals, whispers, cracks in the system, why is it that so few ever prepare? Why do the masses keep walking into the same trap, losing everything while a tiny fraction quietly survives, even thrives, through the storm? And maybe the answer is brutal but simple, because people don't want to see the truth until it's forced into their eyes. And that's why the real drama of a financial crash isn't the moment stocks fall, or the banks collapse, or headlines scream panic. The real drama happens before, in the silence, in the denial, in the blind celebration of a system already breaking underneath. And once you see that, once you understand what really happens before a financial crash, you realize that the next disaster won't catch you by surprise, because the clues are always there, waiting for the few willing to see them.